Hey guys, so I wanted to do a video on exactly what you'll get when you purchase one of our molds. So latex rubber freestanding fiberglass keeper, meaning it'll support itself upside down when you pour the concrete in it. When possible, we try to utilize the fiberglass for the legs instead of putting legs on like these. A couple reasons why we do that. Number one, it keeps the legs out of the way so you can get your bolts easier. And two, it makes your mold smaller on your table so you can get more molds on your table, a little more productive that way. And latex wise, we use a 72 to 74% high solids latex. Very important for using a high solid latex to minimize shrinkage. Latex naturally shrinks. It's just the nature of it. The lower solids will shrink up more than the higher solids. Plus, you get just a much better product using the higher solids. And a lot of you guys that owns our molds know we really focus on giving you a good seam. So the high solids plays a very important role in that. Several other factors do too, but one of the most important ones, I guess, is the high solids latex. So again, we make a really good seam on a mold. We think that's important. So when you're pouring the piece and taking it out, you're spending less time cleaning it up. It just looks better. If you've got a bad seam and your mix contains gravel and the gravel comes out in the seam, y'all know what I'm talking about. That's kind of a pain to clean up and get to look decent. So anyway, I'm going to take this mold apart right quick and just show you the side of it. Again, some of the molds we'll utilize, like the back part of the mold is one leg when we can, and then put a 2x2 or 2x4, depending on the size of it. Wooden legs is what we put on, and we will coat the leg with the resin all the way down to the bottom. Just kindly protects the wood when you're raking your concrete off and sticking to it, and protects it from the water, makes it easier to clean. So wooden legs is what we put on our molds. Now, take this one apart. I just want to show you guys. We try to make our fiberglass fit our latex like perfect. So I'm going to bring this up close and show you. This is just one example. You can see right in here, there is no space. That fiberglass comes down and just fits that perfect. We think that's important because, number one, if you've got a big rounded area in there, and depending on the size of the piece and the weight of the concrete, if you have a big old void there, it'll push your rubber out and make a bad place in your product. So again, just real crucial to keeping your seams lined up and making your stuff look better. Now, if you'll notice when you open our molds up, we do not put any type of lock or line up circle. I've seen people use half circles. Some people use channels, and nothing wrong with that. But at this point, we haven't seen really a need in doing that. Ours line up pretty good the way they are, and we'll show you how we put it together to make that happen. So I'm just going to take this on apart. Again, you'll get all the hardware with your molds. We supply every bolt and nuts and washers. So, you know, your typical mold here, you'll just lay it in one section of fiberglass. Just kindly dry fit them together. See me put that on backwards. And we typically we just loosely put them in the flange first, like that. And then you can go around here and we go ahead and tighten them up. Now, if you're using a power drill, you'll want to set that thing on like the lightest torque setting it's got, because you really don't want to crank down on these. You shouldn't have to crank down on these to get the mold to go together. This fiberglass should, you know, these are handmade, hand fitted. They should go together with ease and not really need a lot of persuasion from a drill or a torque on a drill to get them to go together. So always turn the we always turn the nut side. We try to make it a habit of tightening the nut side first. Because if you turn the bolt side, you know, that bolt turning in that hole over a period of time will wear that fiberglass out and make that hole bigger. So I always try to get in the habit of tightening the nut side up first. And, you know, keep the washers on both sides. It's real important. So, because if you've got that nut grinding against the fiberglass or the bolt side, eventually it's going to wear through there. You know, it's just the nature of fiberglass. There's really no way to stop that. So that's the way we do it. I usually tighten all of the non-flange sections up, and then I flip it over. And then you can look down in there, and that seam is, I'm going to bring it up here. I don't know if you can see it, but that seam is lined up really good, and the bolts are not even tightened up in it. So once we do that, we will stick the flange together, kind of do it last. I know some people do it first, but if your fiberglass goes together like it should, you should be able to bolt all your sections. You know, loose fit the bolts in the holes, just put them in, and then you can go around and tighten up everything else first and then flip it over. That way you can look down in your mold and then tighten up your flange. So pretty easy to do, pretty quick. I know this is just a small, simple mold, but that process should work on all of them. So that's kind of how we take a mold apart and put it back together. We will go over this a little more in depth once we get down in the shop and actually pour mold. We're going to do videos on that. So the tools of choice we use, which I didn't use them here, but 7/16 wrench if needed. Only time you really should need this to loosen a bolt is if you get concrete in the threads or something and it catches on you, but you shouldn't really need this and this to put the mold together. You shouldn't really need to crank it down like that. So that's what we use, and a good old butter knife. This is what we use to clean our seams up with. You shouldn't need anything more aggressive than a butter knife to clean the seam with. Sometimes we'll use the back of it right here, you know, to go, we'll take it and go down the seam like that sometimes if needed. Most of the time we just use our fingernail to clean the seam off with. So you shouldn't have a lot of concrete flashing, I call it, I guess, run out in that seam. And then you can use this, you know, work around the bottom of the piece. Once you take it out, you can run around the bottom of it to take that sharp edge off, because, you know, that'll chip off once you paint it every time. And then you can use this if you get any leftover concrete on the bottom, you can scrape it off. So just a really good, cheap, inexpensive tool to have around. And another thing I think is very important to have in this business is baby powder. So if you have one of those old molds that are sticky, you know, it's getting the melted spots in it, you can sprinkle some of this on there. That'll, you know, keep that stickiness from getting any worse or sticking to your piece. You'll be able to get a few more pores out of it. So another important thing I think you should have. Sometimes when these molds are new, the release agent we use between the rubber and the fiberglass, sometimes it's just, I don't know how to say it, it's just new. It's not got any dust on it or anything. So you can put a little bit of that powder on there if you need to, if you feel a little bit of resistance when you take it apart the first time. But usually when you get it home, you know, if you open the box and take it out, take it apart, you know, mold release it, put it back together, you'll be good to go. So, but anyway, this is a good item to have around in your shop. So let's see. A lot of people ask how thick our latex is, and it's a very open-ended question depending on how big the piece is and how complicated the piece is. So it just varies by piece, and I guess you just learn that with, I don't know, experience using molds. Now, we try to make it thick enough to last, but not so thick that it's not going to be productive for you. You know, if this thing was like uber thick and it was very hard to strip, and I know this is not a good example, but take this Hippo here. If this thing was like super thick and it was hard to strip and challenging to roll off the nose of it, you know, took you 30 minutes to take this thing apart and put it back together wouldn't be very productive. So we try to hit that fine line between, you know, thick enough that it's going to last you several years and get hundreds of pours out of it, and not too thick. So another thing about latex, again, you know, we use the high solids, 72 to 74% solid latex. If you're buying latex to make your own molds with, the way we buy it is we buy it in 55-gallon drums. So buying it in drums like that, they actually show the date that it's produced. And typically anymore, latex only is good for about 3 months in a bucket. I know years and years ago, it would keep a lot longer, but I've talked to several chemists and they just say that the way it's made this day and age, about 3 months is it. So if you think about that, that's a very short amount of time for latex to be made, bucketed down into 5-gallon buckets, shipped to a store, set on a shelf. You buy it, bring it home, and paint it on your models. It's not a very long time. So again, the way we buy it, we keep up with the date. We've never made a mold that it was and sold it that was past that 3 months time. We've made some and used them here. We've had some luck with some and some we've not. So again, keep that in mind. If you're buying latex, ask the buyer, hey, how old is this? You know, when this was made, because, you know, you may buy it and think, well, I can set that up for, you know, a month or so and work on molds when I get time. But, you know, latex is prone to go bad from the moment it's made. It's a natural product. So anyway, just keep that in mind if you're buying latex. The fiberglass we do, we hand lay our fiberglass. I know a lot of the companies will spray it with a chopper gun, and it makes it like super thick. There's nothing wrong with that for sure, but we hand lay ours, so it should be even thickness all over. Again, that'll vary depending on the size of the piece. Obviously, bigger pieces need more strength so than smaller pieces, but it will be thick enough that you won't wear it out. So your bolts won't pull through, you won't break, you know, the nuts won't break through when you tighten them down. So it'll be thick enough. And we hand sand over ours, try to get all the splinters off. Can I guarantee 100% that we get them all and you're not going to get one in your finger? No. And I don't think anybody else can either. So, but anyway, we do hand sand over all of our pieces just to try to make them as smooth as possible. So, you know, we will minimize that, but we do recommend wearing gloves when you first start using these molds. As I think with anybody's molds, you should wear gloves. So just kind of an overview of what you'll get when you buy one of our molds. And let's see, I don't think I've missed anything about it. Keep watching. We're going to post more videos on mixes, and we'll get down in the shop and actually start pouring these and show you how we use them. So thanks for watching.